Hello, my name is Nicta Lubaale, the General Secretary of the Organization of African Instituted Churches, originally from Uganda but based in Nairobi, where the Secretariat of the Organization of African Instituted Churches is. I work for this organization, which brings together over 1,000 denominations across the continent of Africa and now in Europe also and the wider diaspora. These are churches founded by Africans and managed by Africans, but also linking with all the other churches. The African independent churches is a phenomenon which started from the late 19th century into the early 20th century. These churches originally was founded as people with the Christian faith started questioning what was happening on the continent, looking at issues of colonialism, looking at issues of cultural domination. So they decided to look at the Christian faith from the African context, looking at the resourcefulness of the African culture in the Christian mission. These are churches spread all over the continent, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, in West Africa, the Anglophone, the Francophone, in East, in Central Africa, and the Southern Africa. These churches are mainly in three categories. The Nationalistic Churches, which were started as a response to the political and economic and social issues which were being generated by the colonialists and the missionaries who worked with them. So it was more of a rejection of a Christian faith that accepted colonialism as a normal thing. The second category are the spiritual churches. These were also founded during the colonial era, but their focus was more on the working of the gifts of the Holy Spirit in the church and in the community. So these churches decided to start accepting the working of the Spirit of God in the lives of individuals and empowering them to do mission. These are the churches which brought the African churches close, or start looking at the priesthood of all, where common people as laborers or factory workers, porters, subsistence farmers, who came to discover from the scriptures that they can be empowered by the Holy Spirit to do the work of ministry, even if they hadn't been to theological education institutions. It doesn't mean that we don't evaluate, but we are talking about common people being empowered for mission in their communities and beyond. But they also looked at the place of the African culture in the life of the church. The third category is what we call the African Pentecostals. These emerged mainly after the era of independence. They emerged mainly from the 1960s. They also look at the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ in the African context. They look still at the African culture as resourceful. But as any other church, there are issues still where there are gaps, where there are barriers, but all this is mixed with the resourcefulness. So what the OAIC does is to look at the resourcefulness and generate it and engage it effectively in the mission of the church. We are happy to revive our contact, and not just contact but partnership with the United Churches of Christ and the Disciples of Christ, because the OAIC worked with the disciples in the 1980s, because the organization was formed in 1978, and it needed partners to accompany it in its mission. So the Disciples of Christ were among the very first people to support the OAIC in the 80s, but the partnership ended there. For the last almost 25 years, haven't been working together. But our hopes are that we shall revive this partnership and we'll even work in a stronger way, sharing resourcefulness from our side. We bring something to the table. We don't come with an empty plate looking for something. We are saying we are church. We are not more church, we are not less church than any other. So as we come from Africa, we come with the resourcefulness of the church in Africa that we bring to the church in the north, and we shall share in the resourcefulness of the church in the north, especially the United Churches of Christ and the Disciples of Christ in this context, sharing in the human resource. Missionaries who can come and work with us, we are happy to work on that, and we are beginning to work on that. But we can also share missionaries to come here and deal with some of the issues which we also look at as critical issues in the mission of the church. And we want to come, and we shall come because when the missionaries came to Africa, many of them were not invited, but they saw the need and came. So we also are saying, fine, we want to come and accompany you in some of the areas where you could be struggling because we are the Church of Jesus Christ. So resourcefulness on both sides, that's what we are going to look at, and strengthen each other's ministry. We are looking at that mutual way of working together. And our hope is that the partnership is going to be much better than even what we had in the 80s.